For me, I've always been involved in art, sculpture. Architecture is just an extension of that. It's just another form of art, another form of sculpture. So I've always had an affinity and an interest for it.
And I've always really been interested in buildings, just traveling as a child when my dad was in the military. So I always took notice of buildings. I just always was interested in real diverse shapes. The architect's name is Raleigh Arthur Andrew. He is a California native, and I don't know really any more of any other structures that he has done besides our home other than Green Hills Memorial Park, which is just a few miles from here. Frank Grues, who I looked up, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, he worked for William Pereira as well as Pereira and Luckman. So I do know that he had some wonderful mentors that he studied with, but again, his career was cut short because of an illness, and he passed away in the mid-70s. We were able to find out who the architect was because the blueprints were passed on to each owner. So we are only the third owners of this beautiful home, and we're really extremely lucky to exist in this beautiful space.
The house was built in 1959. It's a one-bedroom house. It's close to 2,900 square feet. So it was built as a bachelor pad. I think what has drawn us to the house is the creative aspect of the architecture. It's very asymmetrical. A lot of the walls aren't parallel or right angles. The view is pretty spectacular, and we sort of pinch ourselves every day about how lucky we are to live with this view. But the architecture is really creative and interesting and pretty hardcore mid-century modern. It's really special living here. All of the glass, the fact that we use all of the living area here. It's one bedroom. There's not rooms that are sealed off that we don't use. We're in all of the house. And there's a view from every bit of the house other than the master bathroom. And with all of this glass and the view as extensive as it is, I mean, we see from the Hollywood sign down past Camp Pendleton and everything in between. And it changes every hour. So we can sit here all day long, and we constantly are like, oh my God, look outside, look at the light on the mountains right now, or oh, look at, there's a fire over there, or oh, look at the ships that are coming in, or watch the SpaceX barge come in with the booster on it down here. It's always something going on, and there's always plenty to see. So it's just like entertainment, but you're part of it. It's hard to describe, but it does change you. I mean, it's so kind of rewarding or pleasant, or I don't know exactly what the term would be, but it's wonderful to live here. And that's why we look at each other and we'll just say this over and over. We're so lucky to live in this house.
I love patterns and textures, and I think this house has all of that. It has, of course, gorgeous light. I'm sure that if someone else had bought this house, I'm sure one of the first things they might have done was scrape off I don't want to call it popcorn ceiling because it's not, it's the plaster, stucco. And, but that's part of what brings this house to life, is with the beams against that texture. And then the texture of the slump stone on the fireplace. With the cork, I'd never seen a wall like that before at all. So it's all of the magical things. And of course, the marble, kind of how do you describe that? They're actually very thick, and I'd never seen a floor like that. But all of these textures, I don't know, it just all comes together. It's a beautiful sculpture.
And it was important to us to have the furnishing and the artwork and everything also be true to the nature of the house. So, the furniture is vintage or period correct. The artwork is largely all vintage. So we've tried to be very true to the decor and how we live in the house also. My father was a hardcore car guy. And so he got me started on cars at a very, very young age. I've got pictures of me at 6 years old, riding around with him in his Austin Healey that he bought brand new in '55. I still have the car. So, we would go to the races, we'd go to the hot rod shows, we'd do everything. I mean, he was a big time car guy. When I met Arianne, I immediately realized that she had the potential to be a great car person because I was driving this old beat up Toyota pickup, and I had to teach her how to pop the clutch to start it because it was always on a dead battery. And I figured, well, any girl that I'm going to date and she's willing to pop the clutch to start it every time we have to leave a parking lot or something, she's got potential.
This particular house, it's beyond unique in our opinion, especially during the pandemic. As I mentioned before, this particular house, I think for everyone, it was such a challenging time that the world has gone through and is still going through, that this house it was very healing. There's so much beauty, and then of course the outside coming in. It's just one of these spaces that you don't feel lonely.
This is just different. It's very difficult to articulate what makes it so different, but it really is. When you live here, it's all transparent. All the outside is part of where we are sitting. So you don't feel like we're sitting in the house and that's the yard. We're just part of all of this. We're part of that view. There's really not a barrier between us. So it's hard to describe that sensation when you live like that, when it's always there, in the morning, in the evening, as the weather changes, at night when it's dark and all the harbor is lit up. Yeah, we pinch ourselves. I mean, it's almost daily that we'll look at each other and we'll just think we're so lucky to be living in this home and have it be still so original and be able to really appreciate the genius of the design. Because we think it really is brilliantly designed. And the view changes hourly for us. We're so content here. And we don't take a minute of it for granted.